How's everybody doing? Good? Okay, me too. But can you all believe it's December? Like December 4th, December. Do y'all have your trees up? Do you have more than one tree? Who has more than one tree? Okay, well, so 3 of us do. Well, actually 2, because one of those is my husband. Oh, 3, yes, good job, Zach. Okay, I'm really glad that you guys have your trees up, because we've been waiting. Now, ours went up on November 1st, so I did wait until after Halloween. Pastor Rudy is not lying to you when he says that he would like it up all year, and he really does keep the tree that I gave him in his office up year-round with the lights on. And it must be an act of Jesus that the batteries last that long for you, Pastor, because I don't think I've had to replace those batteries, so he loves you. But I love Christmas, and it's Christmas time, and there's probably kids that are finalizing all their wish lists right now, and maybe your grown-ups are making your wish list, because I do believe that grown-ups can have wish lists too. It's time for Christmas music. It's time for Christmas movies. If you're me, maybe you've been watching the Hallmark Christmas movies since October. I saw somebody shake their head. Yes, I was afraid I was going to be the only one on that, but if you are not familiar with what they are, I do have a little video for you. It tells you just a little bit about it. I'm going to show you that picture in just a minute. I wanted to play a video first.
This Christmas, he's a
Thank you.
boy with a heart of gold. She's a big city girl who has to travel there for some obscure reason. He wears flannel. She wears heels. She flies on corporate jets, has a stuck-up boyfriend, and works way too hard. He's got a Jeep, owns his own business, and volunteers with a charity. She's completely absorbed in herself and doesn't realize how lonely she is. He's got a dog, is the most eligible bachelor in town, and is somehow single. They've both got trust issues. A storm blows in, and she gets stuck in town for the holiday and breaks up with her boyfriend, but immediately gets with small town boy. This Christmas, watch them get together with a completely predictable plot, break up right before the end, and then get back together again. One town, one plot, maybe 3 actors. Predictable for Christmas. Brought to you by the Hallmark Channel.
Okay. That's really not all that untrue. And I think a lot of people might roll their eyes at them, and they can, because it is a lot like that. But I think that even though they haven't maybe won an Oscar for anything or Best Screenplay, that maybe if you don't watch a Christmas Hallmark movie, everybody has a Christmas show they like, right? I mean, there's so many of them. So now I'm going to show you that picture that had some of those scenes from some really iconic movies. I mean, you look at those pictures and you can almost hear the things happening, right? You see Ralphie and you hear, "You're going to shoot your eye out, kid." Or Zuzu putting the ornament on the tree, or the snow harmonies in White Christmas. I mean, those spark something in you, right? And if your movie isn't up there, I'm sorry, we only had so much room. I know Charlie Brown's not up there. I know some of you think Die Hard is a Christmas movie. I get it, but I don't, but okay. Anyway, there are just a lot of Christmas movies out there that can just awaken your Christmas spirit and your excitement for Christmas. So even if Hallmark doesn't spark your list, some of these will. But for me, even though I love all the other movies too, I also like to watch just a little bit of Hallmark before I go to bed at night. And Pastor Rudy asked me one time, "Jen, why do you do that?" And I said, "It's simple. I like simple. And I don't like drama. And I like that all of the people in Hallmark land they're nice and they're cheerful and they're thoughtful, and there's festivals. I mean, I wish we had somewhere to go with all those cute little festivals and all the decorations and the Christmas cookies that are just big and giant and perfect, and it's probably better that I don't eat all those big, giant, perfect cookies, but I still love them. I love that there's no swearing. I don't like swearing even in regular TV, so Hallmark's perfect for me. They don't ever have it. And it's Hallmark, so you are guaranteed that there's going to be a happily ever after ending. But then I gave it a little bit more thought, and I came to some other conclusions. All of the Hallmark Christmas movies, they are laced with tradition, and I love tradition. I am a creature of habit girl. Traditions work well for me. I used to make Christmas cinnamon rolls with my grandma every year. Now I make them. I'm hoping that one of these days my kids will start making them, so all I have to do is eat them, but we all have our wish lists, right? I believe it's going to happen. But all of these traditions that are in the Hallmark shows, they really wouldn't mean much if we all didn't have family and friends to share them with. And another thing that speaks to my heart is that there's typically some aspect of hope and redemption. there's almost always, well, there's always some relationship that just it experiences restoration. And in the Hallmark Christmas ones, it's starting to expand more to just not just the guy-girl thing like we saw, but there's parent-kid relationships and siblings and grandparents and friends. It's all the restoration, and I love it because we all know how much I love connecting. And it just has this magical way of making everything in the world seem right. And it's all beautiful. Except the true reality is that even though you can count on that kind of reconciliation and restoration in a Hallmark movie, we don't get to count on that in real life. I mean, if you think about it, this is the time of year where you hear that iconic song, it's the most wonderful time of the year. That's the one with the mistletoeing and the glowing heart song, in case you don't know, but that's really popular. And for some people, it's a really popular time of year because they are spending time with friends and family and loved ones, and they're gathered around the tree, and they're opening gifts, and they're celebrating the birth of Jesus together, and it's just beautiful, and they love it. But it's not like that for everyone. Not everybody gets to have that. And it's just really unfortunate that it's not uncommon for the holidays to feel isolating and disappointing in a lot of ways. Which brings me to our new series that we're starting today. It's the most wonderful time, with the emphasis on that question mark. Because more often than not, the reality of the holidays is not like a Hallmark Christmas. In fact, the expectation of the holidays just coming, even that can lead to disappointment. It can feel so disheartening to you walk into the store and you see all of those Christmas decorations that are on the shelves by October, sometimes September, like they're up there with the back to school things, or you see all of the things coming across social media and all the Christmas crafts and all these things that are supposed to ignite this Christmas spirit that in you. Yes, thank you, Jesus. Christmas spirit in you, and it just doesn't. And I've been there. I've had those seasons where I see those things on the shelves and I'm thinking about my kids, and it's this internal battle of, I'm supposed to be happy, but I'm not. Okay, we need to make this fun, but it's hard. And it's hard to create magic when you're feeling all of those different things. I really get that. It's rough. But today, I am going to be talking about how we can change our mindset on those unmet expectations and how we can dare to believe for the best. And I'm going to have a challenge for you, but that's going to be at the end. And it's going to be a good challenge, I think. It's going to be a life-changing one, not just a Christmas time one. And it's going to start with mindset, because mindset is a really important thing. It can drastically impact how we approach our everyday lives. Because unfortunately, most of us, we don't live in that reality of a Hallmark movie. We live in our own reality. And real life comes with real problems. There are real heartaches. There are real divorces. Things can get really hard in relationships. So maybe you just want to have a relationship and you've been waiting so patiently and it's just not happening. Maybe you're waiting for a baby and that's not happening. Maybe betrayal happens. That happens. That's not fun either. An unwanted diagnosis. Nobody ever wants those. Maybe somebody passes away. We never want that. Real life, it's just really hard. And sometimes I was thinking about this morning. Sometimes it's not even one of those major things. Maybe things just aren't settling right with like you and a relationship that you have, maybe your spouse or your kids or just a friendship or something. And that can really just offset how you're feeling about things. So it doesn't have to be a major life experience that happens. I mean, just everyday life cannot always be what you want it to be. But unlike Hallmark, these things, they are not resolved in under 2 hours, and they don't come with a commercial break. As much as me want that break, it just doesn't happen. But Jesus never said that our lives are going to be all pretty and perfect. He said that there's going to be trouble, and trouble isn't seasonal. Listen to what John said in John 16:13. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. Like I said, real life, it comes with real problems. And it seems like it can be that much harder when we had hopes and dreams for something that didn't happen. And unfortunately, it's our expectations that set us up for disappointment. Why? Well, because real life includes real people. And unfortunately, real people are unreliable, and that leads to the unmet expectations. And I'm sounding very Grinch-like right now. I'm very sorry, but it's true. Happens to me too. Happens to my family. We experienced a pretty rough summer. We thought something was going to happen, and it didn't, and it took us kind of by surprise, and it was hard. Some of you know this too, that my mom's health has changed drastically. She had a returning diagnosis that we did not expect. One day she woke up in her house and she fell and she never went back. That meant that we had to move her into assisted living. We had to sell her house. Nobody tells you how to do these things, y'all. I'm just telling you. So thank you for the people that were praying, because it is a miracle that she got to where she's going. But it's hard. And the process is painful, and it can be painful in ways that you just don't see coming. I know that. But I don't have to tell you that things not going as planned, that's not a new thing. I'm not the first person that has ever happened to. I mean, look at Mary. And Pastor Mike is actually going to be talking much more about Mary than I am right now in the next weeks, and it's going to be really good, so you will be thankful to hear that. I am just going to share a couple of things today. I think most of us know that she was engaged to a guy named Joseph, and they were planning this wedding, and everything was going to be lovely, and then boom, an angel comes to her in her sleep and says, oh, hey, by the way, that's not happening how you thought. You're going to have a baby, and you're going to name him Jesus. Okay, here's what he actually said in Luke 1:30-31. Don't be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you will name him Jesus. Okay, I'm going to point out two things here. One, it's not like she was experiencing this thing or having this consequence because she did something wrong. I mean, it says Mary found favor with God, and she still got news that she wasn't expecting, because unexpected things just happen. Second, I wasn't there. I don't know Mary personally, but I'm guessing she may have had one or two or more thoughts running through her head in that moment, like maybe just shock, fear, maybe a little disappointment just because you don't understand. And I'm sure that you all have your own story, maybe one that got interrupted by plans that you didn't plan on. That happened. Maybe you don't have a wish list for that very reason. Maybe you've even quit praying or talking to God at all and telling him what's on your heart. I know that can happen. I know that can happen because I've had those moments. I've had even seasons of where I question God and I question his faithfulness in those moments when it's just hard, and I end up in this pattern of not trusting him, and my prayers become sporadic or even inconsistent, and probably because I just don't want to feel disappointed again. Nobody likes to feel disappointed. But in hindsight, I think what that really shows is that I'm just not trusting God. And I'm not trusting him to be God. And I'm not trusting him to handle things in his way, because I have this habit of thinking that he should handle things my way because I think it's a really good way, but I'm not God, and he is. So I need to work on that. Because God doesn't need me, and he doesn't need you, and he doesn't need us to tell him how any of these things should be handled. They happen his way in his timing. And Mary, like I said, she could have reacted a lot of different ways too, and maybe she did. Probably mind was just racing about all of the what ifs. But ultimately she said in Luke 1:38, I am the Lord's servant. May your word to me be fulfilled. And then the angel left her. Can you imagine? First of all, an angel coming to you in your sleep, that's probably a different kind of thing. But he drops this news on you and then he just leaves. You don't get to ask any questions. You don't get to make sure he's talking to the right person. He's just gone. And yet she chose to trust God. And she trusted him with her plan for herself and for her family. And she responded with a confidence. And a confidence in God. Not in her plan, not in anybody else's plans. But there's more, because we all know that there's usually more than one unexpected thing that happens in our lives. After all of that, after all that she and Joseph went through with the pregnancy and the traveling and the delivery and the fear for Jesus' life and all of that, later, when Jesus was older, they took him to a temple. And then while they were there, Simeon tells them this. And it was some good, some hard, but he said, I lost my notes. Luke 2, 34 through 35. Then Simeon blessed them, and he said to Mary, the baby's mother, "This child is destined to cause many in Israel to fall, and others to rise. He has been sent as a sign from God, but many will oppose him. As a result, the deepest thoughts of many hearts will be revealed, and a sword will pierce your very soul." So even good news isn't guaranteed to come without pain. And I think when Mary heard this news that her heart was going to be pierced over her son, I feel like that takes that phrase that parenting isn't for the faint of heart to a totally next level. Because I'm sure you guys know, anybody, if you've watched your kids, when you watch your kids struggle, it doesn't matter how old they are. I mean, my mama's heart just aches. So I think Mary sets a really, really beautiful example for us when it comes to trusting God. Because we shouldn't doubt him. We should dare to believe him. And that kind of trust, comes from believing the truth that is communicated in Romans 8:28. I know we hear this verse a lot. We know that all things work together for the good of those who love God, for those who are called according to his purpose. God is who makes it possible for us to be happy and to find joy and to feel loved, even when our story doesn't play out the way that we hope, even when we don't have what our version of happily ever after should be. Because when you think that something is going to happen and you have all of these hopes and dreams built around it, but it ends up exploding right in front of you, it can shake your world, but it can also shake your faith. And that's pretty unsettling. Like, I know I'm really familiar with that. I know that it can be a physical feeling of just hurt in your heart. And when you see the hope and the joy in those moments, well, that the joy is not there. I mean, it's not in the forefront of my mind to go, oh, this is all great. No, what I want is my Barefoot Dreams blanket and to crawl under it and be cozy. And I think a lot of you know that too. I mean, I get to talk with you and you trust us with your prayers. We know that. You probably want your own Barefoot Dreams blanket, and I'll share. But there's hope. There's just so much hope, because our joy, it comes from knowing and believing that God is able to bring about some good and some redemptive spin, or whatever painful circumstances are going on, he can change that. What I see as something that will bring joy or bring happiness isn't always going to align with what God sees. And I just have to trust that he knows best. His vantage point is so much better than mine, because because he's perfect. And the problem with these Hallmark movies, whether it's a regular one or a Christmas one, is that it portrays hope, but it fails to offer a hope that doesn't disappoint. Jesus is who offers us a love and a hope that is never, ever going to fail. Listen to this promise. It's Psalm 136, 1 through 2. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the God of gods, for his steadfast love endures forever. Forever doesn't expire. It's not just for a season. It's ours for now and all eternity. And beyond that, Jesus offers himself as someone who will not leave you. Deuteronomy 31:6 says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not fear or be in dread of them." And then them in this passage, they're talking about the adversaries of the Israelites. But you and I, we have our own adversaries, including Satan, but we don't have to be afraid either. For it is the Lord your God who goes with you, and he will not leave you or forsake you. And as someone who struggles with rejection and feeling not wanted, I love this. I just love so much that I can trust that he is never going to leave. And our circumstances, they might not change, but our perspective can. Think back to Mary and the angel for just a minute, because that news wasn't going to go away, thankfully, because that's what God is, Jesus. But she trusted in her relationship with God. And I kind of imagine her just taking a breath and going, "You've got me, so I've got this." And I will be honest, that is not always my first reaction, but I do really want it to be. So that brings me to the challenge that I have for you and for myself. And as I wrap this up, I want to challenge us to dare to believe God. And I want to clarify something here, that there's a difference between believing in God and believing God. A lot of people believe in God, that there is a God. But believing that God is who he says he is and that he can do what he does, what he can do, that's just a whole new thing. That's a whole different topic. And it's one of my very favorite topics. We're not talking about that today. Because for today, what I want you to know is that you can believe that God has a good plan for you. So you can look at whatever your not so hallmark situation is and just trust and look at it from a different perspective. Because your story, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of that unexpected stuff, that is going to be used for God's glory. And everything that you've experienced and every single thing that you are being exposed to, that's how God is designing just a new story for you, one that he designs his own way. And if we didn't have those experiences, life would be pretty boring and unpredictable. No, actually, it would be predictable if we didn't have those. Kind of like that Hallmark movie, right? And before someone says it, I know that boring sometimes sounds really, really good when you have a lot going on, but not this time. I don't think there's anything boring about God. I mean, he's amazing. And those unexpected and unwanted things, they're going to be okay, and they will bring good, he promises. I also want to say here, please hear me, that I don't want to make light of hardship in any way. I know hardship is hard. That's why it's called hardship. I've been there. It's not fun. It can be painful. It can feel excruciating to your heart. I get it, but I do want to encourage you that you are not alone in your feelings. Because as believers, Jesus knows. I mean, he's experienced this all firsthand. He was sent to this earth for us. He's walked through every single kind of pain that we have ever been through or that we're going to go through. He just knows. So you're not alone. You can identify with him. And we might not understand why these things happen, but it's our lack of trust or our frustration or unmet expectations. They can change if we choose to look at it through the lens of faith. And I don't want to skip over that phrase, the lens of faith, because I think it sounds pretty and maybe you've heard it before, but it's so important and it will make all of the difference in your mindset. So I'm just going to share a few quick thoughts on it. Because I think sometimes when we think about faith, we think about that's believing in God. And it's true. You do need to believe in God. But there's a different component to it, and it's called a lens of faith. So I'm going to explain. If you are having a hard time seeing, you should probably go to the eye doctor, and he's probably going to prescribe some kind of a lens for you. Okay. In the same way, God does that for us. He prescribes a lens, and that's our faith. And he offers us a way to fix our spiritual vision. And our faith can look very, very different when we start looking at it through the correct lens. So if we looked to God and see God in the midst of what we don't like, what's happening, it's just going to change everything altogether. I'm going to share Romans 8:28 again because I think it applies again and it's just really important. Romans 8:28, and we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. And I know that that is easier said than done. It's just so important that we realize that it is a choice. If we don't choose to look through a lens of faith, then that's when we give Satan a chance to come in and just keep us laced in that fear. So here are just a few quick things I'm going to tell you that can kind of shift your vision. First, watch what you say. Because what we say impacts what we believe. So you need to say things that speak the truth of who God is and what he can do. Psalm 91 is an excellent psalm for that. I'm not going to put it up right now, but I encourage you to go back and read it and be encouraged by it. Pray it because it's a really, really good truth. Second, watch what you see. Because you really need to be careful of what your focus is. I know that I can have a tendency to be a cup half empty person. I work really hard at being a cup half full person, and I've come a long way. But if you are not intentionally looking for God's goodness in a situation, you're not going to see it. And it's there. So you need to watch what you say, watch what you see. And third, you need to watch what you hear. Because in general, I think what we hear can have a huge impact on our outlook in general. So if you're listening to negativity, it only makes sense that you're going to believe in it. Pastor Rudy was talking about that, I think last week or the week before. It's just important what you're hearing to how you're going to function. So you need to watch what you say, what you see, and what you hear, because these three things are going to adjust our vision and our outlook. And all of these things are so much easier to do if you are familiar with who God is. And we can have a living relationship with him, but it's kind of on us to help maintain it, and we need to make the time for that. And I actually got called on this the other day by Pastor Rudy on something different, but you have the time. You can make the time. I make time for my things to do my Duolingo every day so I don't lose my streak. Wordle, anybody else do Wordle? And make sure you do your Wordle every day or whatever your app is. I don't make time to continue a streak with Jesus every day. And I really need to. We really need to. Because he's there, and he is always good, and he's always working things together for the good. So if you leave with anything today, I hope it's this. We don't always see our whole story, but with God, it's not the end, and we can trust that it's a meanwhile. We can trust that we're not going to stay stuck in those really hard parts, that our story's a process, and it's going to be good. And again, and the worship team can make their way up now. Just want to remind you of the challenge. And I'm not only challenging you, believe me, I'm challenging myself. All week long, this has been a challenge to me, that we can dare to believe God when things aren't going how we hoped that they would go. We can change how we look at things. And we can choose to look through our lens of faith, because our circumstances might not change, but God is a constant now and always. And instead of questioning if it's the most wonderful time, we can just believe God in the good things. Because it's Jesus that we're celebrating this season, and Jesus is the one that gives us the cause for joy. So even if our story isn't like a Hallmark story, Jesus is the reason for our happily ever after. That's all I have. Thank you.